Hi everyone, in today's COVID-infected video, I'm going to check out the artillery units available to us in the new Astra Militarum codex. Obviously things have changed with a new unit to now consider, and those existing artillery units have had their datasheets and points updated. So the units to consider are the good old-fashioned heavy weapon team with mortars, the new Bombast Field Gun, the Basilisk Manticore and the Wyvern. The assigned keywords are platoon and corps on the heavy weapon team, platoon on the Bombast gun, and artillery and squadron on the 3 tracked vehicles. This is important given these indicate which heroic characters can buff these units or they can receive orders from. Points-wise, heavy weapon team is 55 points with its 3 mortar tubes, 130 points for the 2 Bombast Field Guns, and 140 points for the Basilisk and Manticore, and 120 for the Wyvern. These points have slightly changed, with heavy weapon team being 5 points more expensive, the Basilisk being more expensive, but the Manticore now cheaper than before. And now overall, I think these do all have to a degree a role to play in the new book. The new codex is great in the sense that there is now a reason to take almost all units with some unique rules in the datasheets or supporting stratagems. Completely off topic, but supporting this rationale is that a tech priest engine seer can now give out a single friendly vehicle a decent 5+ invul save, and ratlings can now move after shooting, and this includes after firing Overwatch, which could make for some very neat tricks. These are examples of turning obscure units into those with a clear tactical purpose. So back onto our indirect fire units, let's firstly review their core datasheets. Heavy weapon team remains unchanged at toughness 3, 2 wounds and 5+ save per model base. And the new ordnance battery is toughness 4, 6 wounds and 4+ save. It's a little bit tougher than heavy weapon team, but ultimately still very squishy. Now the Basilisk, Manticore and Wyvern are all now the same toughness 7, 11 wounds and 3+ save. This is obviously easier to mentally manage than the old codex, where some were toughness 6 and some toughness 7. And now flashing up their applicable shooters, the mortars are now strength 5, which is a pretty big improvement, as against all infantry models, including Custodes, Orcs and Space Marine Eradicators, you're rolling 4s to wound as opposed to 5s earlier. The Bombast Field Gun is a heavy D6, strength 7 AP2, flat 2 damage, or in other words, a better AP autocannon. A key consideration I should mention is at the time of writing the balanced data slate excludes Astra Militarum from the indirect nerf, which worsens the shooter's ballistic skill and AP by 1. For this video, I will assume that Guard will be included in this nerf when the new data slate is released, be it late January, early Feb next year, which would coincide with the new codex being made available for sale outside of the Army Starter set. So this would mean that the Bombast would be delivering an AP-1 hit, which would truly put in line with an autocannon. Right next is the Basilisk that still maintains its 240 inches, shoot across 4 tables range. Its weapon type has been changed to heavy D6+3, means you'll be getting out on average 6 shots per turn, or 30 shots across the course of 5 rounds in a battle. As mentioned earlier, these vehicles all have the squadron keyword, allowing mechanized orders to be given to it. Pound them to dust has been changed, where it now affects or blasts weapons, not just turret weapons like the old caddy and tank order. It doubled the number of models in the target unit, so if targeting a 3 model count unit, they count as 6 models, meaning the lowest you can roll is 3, or a 6 model count unit is counting as 12, so getting at the max 6 shots are delivering 9 lovely shots. This is clearly a boost if targeting multi-model units, but no help if targeting another single model vehicle unit. The Basilisk now has the strength 10, AP3 and a flat 2 damage, whilst the Manticore, as you can see bottom left, has dropped to strength 9 AP2 but flat 3 damage. Its ability to shoot 4 times a game remains, so getting out 24 shots a game on average. Right next, the Wyvern is basically the same, but now with strength 5 AP1, which is always helpful. Its heavy 4 D6 could be brutal into multi-model count units, with a pound them to dust order, getting a minimum of 12 shots into a 3 model count unit, for example. Okay, so now grouping these units into those that are comparable together. I'm going to put the heavy weapon mortar squad and Wyvern into the same bucket of infantry killers. The mortar team gets out 3d6 shots, and the Wyvern 4d6, so plenty of shots coming out of both of them. So is 3d6 shots at 55 points better than 4d6 for 120 points? Maybe so. The Wyvern is obviously a vehicle, so contributing to the bring it down secondary, but of course it's tougher than 3 easier to hide squishy mortar teams. The mortars have the core and platoon keyword and can probably benefit from more rune synergies, being able to receive the reroll ones to hit bubble from Ursala Creed, the Cadian Castellan and Lord Solar Leonidas on his wind-up mechanical horse if you ever field that model. Overlay this with the regimental order take aim, and including the indirect fire nerf, you're hitting on 4s rerolling 1s. Another benefit of being core is that the regimental standard in a command squad now grants a reroll wound rolls of 1 to nearby core units, so driving a lot of accuracy out of the mortar team. You could sit 2 mortar squads at the back of the board with a Cadian Castellan and a command squad, sending out orders and mortar shells onto your opponent. Now the Wyvern on the other hand doesn't benefit from any of that, but as said can receive mechanized orders, to which I've spoken about pound them to dust. A problem is that you could be only able to issue the 1 order, so you'd be choosing between pound them to dust or gunner's kill on sight, which remains the same as the old book, allowing reroll wants to hit. This could be annoying if we are nerfed in the new balanced data slate, as you'll be choosing between firing max shots at ballistic skill of 5+, or random shots but rerolling runs to hit. Here we should talk about the new regimental doctrine, Expert Bombardiers, where a Voxcaster unit or Sentinel that is within 12 inches and can see the enemy unit grants a reroll once to hit rolls for artillery units. The heavy weapon team doesn't receive this benefit, however on the regimental orders take aim, where the Wyvern obviously does, given it has the artillery keyword. This will put the Wyvern back on a somewhat even footing to the mortars, but I personally don't think Expert Bombardiers is going to be a breakthrough for us, as a 12-inch isn't all that far. Personally, I use Indirect Fire to pick off enemy units safely tucked out of line of sight, and if a Sentinel or infantry squad can see the target, then good chance so can a lot of other direct fire weapons. So from that, I'd say just stick with the mortar team over the Wyvern. Benefiting from a lot more raw synergies is key, and at less than half the points, you could get 6 mortar tubes, so 6 heavy D6, as opposed to just 4 heavy D6. Right now onto those units with the more pointy shooters. The Bombast Field Gun in the Ordnance Battery is of course 2 models for the 130 points, so for comparison's sake I'll say heavy 2d6. Obviously it isn't a vehicle, so not contributing to bring it down, and at toughness 4, 6 wounds and a 4+ save, it's a slightly tougher target for the no prisoners secondary. Not having the keyword core means it doesn't get any of the raw synergies I spoke about, to which the mortar does, but being able to receive regimental orders of course means you're hitting on 4+, if targeting unit it can't see. Its strength 7 AP2, damage 2 puts it in a weird place, being a bit of an in-betweener, without the weight of dice to push through the odds of a lot of hits or wounds, coupled with the AP -2, which as said is AP -1 when shooting out of line of sight. And whilst the flat 2 damage is good, I don't think it's enough to want 130 points. I honestly really want to make this work, as I think the new model looks absolutely fantastic, but I just don't think it's going to do enough work to warrant not taking a Basilisk Manticore mortar team instead. Also annoyingly, its base is absolutely massive, so it could be quite hard to fit into a lot of places. Also, not being a vehicle means if this thing is rolled around and moved, you are of course incurring the -1 to hit penalty, given its heavy weapon profile. So I ignore the Bombast as an indirect choice. Its other weapon choices of the heavy las cannon and Malleus rocket launcher will need to be considered in a separate video. Right now onto the meaty and the Basilisk and Manticore. As said earlier, they both have the same point cost at 140 points and have got the same core datasheet. So as said, the Basilisks will get out an average of 30 shots per game, and the Manticore 24 shots per game, or 5 points per shot for the Basilisk and 6 points per shot for the Manticore. Now, honestly, the differing damage profiles at strength 10, AP3 flat 2 damage versus strength 9, AP2 flat 3 damage is a total head screw. But I guess the way to think about it, is based on what units you intend to put these units into. The Basilisk with strength 10 will obviously be superior into all infantry wounding on a 2+, with a superior AP 3 to carry through the flat 2 damage. The Manticore, whilst strength 9, will always be wounding everything on a 3+, including the vast majority of vehicles, which usually have at best a 3+ save, excluding of course our glorious Astra Militarum heavy vehicles. So I think the key point here is the AP. In a world of Armour of Contempt, an infantry model is able to tow a single piece of terrain. AP2 often becomes AP0, so doing nothing to deliver the Manticore's flat 3 damage. You could of course bring one of each for the versatility of the Basilisk AP3 to deal with enemy infantry in cover, and the Manticore's flat 3 damage to deal damage into high wound count units like vehicles. But I do overall think the Basilisk's superior strength and AP will eventuate in more wounds being delivered than the Manticore strength 9 AP2. Also, being able to fire only 4 times a game obviously is still a restriction for the Manticore. But let's quickly whiz this through some math hammer to see where it actually puts us from a maths point of view. Right, so scenario 1, we're putting them into a toughness 5 target with a 2+ save. The Basilisk gets an average of 30 shots across 5 battle rounds, so a ballistic skill of 4+ equates to 15 hits on the target, and given its wounding on 2+, 13 wounds to which your opponent is saving on 4+, thanks to Armour of Contempt, so 6 go through, resulting in 12 wounds in total. The Manticore fires 24 shots over the course of the game, with 12 hits that are wounding on 3s, so 8 saving throws for your opponent, to which they would fail 3, given their save is a 3+, it's delivering 8 damage with rounding. Now put this into a vehicle unit with a toughness 8 and 3+ save. The average of 15 shots from the Basilisk equates to 10 wounds and 7 failed saving throws from your opponent, with them rolling a 5+, so delivering 13 damage with rounding. The Manticore sees 8 wounds with 4 failed saving throws, and your opponent is saving on 4+, so 12 damage delivered. So obviously these 2 limited scenarios we're looking at clearly don't capture things like -1 to incoming damage or invul saves, but it does show that the Basilisk is superior thanks to its on average more shots over the course of the game and stronger AP to carry through its flat 2 damage. And now to reiterate, the main point that applies to all of these units will be whether Guard are included in the indirect nerf, as I said before. If we are, then I'd say that everything aside from the Mortars will see limited play. Given for a lot of the game, most artillery units will be hitting on a 5, whilst the Mortars is hitting on a 4, thanks to the take aim order. So let's see what the balanced data slate brings us in the early year. But with us excluded from the indirect nerf, I believe the good old-fashioned Mortar team and Basilisk are the superior of the bunch. What do you think? So if you want to support my channel, you can do so with leaving a like, comment or subscribing, buying some channel merchandise or joining my Patreon platoon. So keep your bayonet sharp, lasgun oiled, faith in the Emperor strong. Patreon platoon, sound off. Tank Commander Glenn, Tank Commander Mitchell, Tank Commander Watchdog Van Etten, Colour Sergeant DuPont, Sergeant Bruxius, Adal, the Colonel Merrill, Veterans Gibson, Hall, Lundeen, Guardsman Beard, Coquelin, Flint, Hills, Malik, Nitton, Nguyen, Smith, Tom, Tompkin, Conscript Bosun, England, Gilliam, Goodwin.